Hi, in this first out of 3 videos, I would like to debunk the lie of the Israeli occupation of Judea and Samaria, which is most likely the biggest lie of our time. There is no day passing by that I don't hear the term Israeli occupation in the news, on social media, or from people in my general community. We are living in an anti-Semitic echo chamber where many people accept this lie as truth simply because they hear it many times. On numerous occasions, I ask people to clarify to me, what do they mean by Israeli occupation? And most people couldn't provide any explanation at all, in spite of being convinced of it. Those who offered an explanation didn't match other explanations and demonstrated big holes of ignorance of the facts. At times, people I asked were arguing among themselves what might be the correct explanation, but when all was said and done, I received no clarity, most likely because there is none. The historical facts are like this. In the 19th century, two groups of people, Jews and Muslims, started to migrate into Israel in large numbers. The Jews migrated to escape persecution, and the Muslims migrated for the job opportunities once the Jews started to develop the area. But as part of the lie, the Muslim anti-Semitic machine only wants you to know about the Jewish migration, not the Muslim one. They want you to believe that the Muslim population was there the whole time, which is a lie. You are supposed to believe that the Muslim residents of Judea and Samaria, so-called Palestinians, are ancestral to the area when they are not. In fact, Jordan was the one to label them illegal squatters, which at least historically makes them the occupiers of Judea and Samaria. Numbers also tell the same truth, and you can see them here on the bottom left corner of the slide. Surveys done by the United Nations clearly debunks the claim of Muslim ancestral rights to Judea and Samaria. The surveys show a population growth in the Muslim population of Judea and Samaria multiple times greater than any possibility of natural growth. There is no mathematical calculation that can explain this rapid explosion of population by natural means. This clearly debunks the Muslim claim for nationhood and therefore the cry for occupation. Imagine hundreds of thousands of migrants from Central America settling in southern United States illegally, demanding their own country, and claiming to be occupied by the United States. This is the scenario that is happening in real time in Judea and Samaria. When under Jordanian control, Jordan was unable to stop the migration of Muslims into Judea and Samaria, but never considered granting those migrants nationhood or even citizenship. They were considered illegal squatters before Judea and Samaria became a part of Israel in 1967. Yet today, preying on audience ignorance, the illegal squatters claim ancestral rights of Judea and Samaria, which make Israel the fake occupier of their fake land. An interesting note to make is that when under Jordanian control, when the living conditions of the illegal squatters were deplorable, even without electricity and running water, occupation by Jordan was a non-issue. Today, in spite of Israel not doing anything politically different than what Jordan did. And in spite of Israel improving their living conditions extensively, the anti Semitic machine is hard at work, crying occupation at Israel. From a legal perspective, history also tells a different story from the one you are supposed to believe as true. In 1948, Israel became an independent state by a United Nations majority vote. The UN devised a partition plan between Muslims and Jews that Israel accepted and Jordan rejected. The next day, right after the vote, 5 Muslim countries attacked Israel from all sides, intending to capture the whole of it, announcing on the radio that they were going to throw the Jews into the sea. The attempt to capture the whole of Israel and to throw the Jews into the sea failed. But Jordan, Israel's neighbor from the east, successfully captured Judea and Samaria and annexed it to Jordan in spite of and against the UN ruling ordering them not to do so. From a legal perspective, Jordan became the true illegal occupier of Judea and Samaria. Interestingly enough, occupying the occupying population. Yet the world was silent and the illegal occupation was a non-issue. By keeping the illegal squatters in a deplorable condition and executing those who dared to speak up, Jordan also broke the international laws relating to human rights violations. There was no media megaphone. Where was it then? This was clearly an illegal occupation and clearly human rights violations. But there were no demonstrations anywhere. No one cried occupation in Jordan, and no president of any country claimed that Jordan needs to give Judea and Samaria back to Israel due to rejecting the partition plan. The media was silent even when people in Judea and Samaria were tortured and put to death when requesting basic living necessities. In 1967, once again 5 countries attacked Israel, threatening to throw the Jews into the sea, and this time Jordan lost Judea and Samaria. But since, according to the UN, it wasn't Jordan's to begin with, here too there is no legal justification to calling it an Israeli occupation. In 1988, Jordan denounced its claim to Judea and Samaria altogether, which legally became a part of Israel, as it should have been in 1948 when Jordan rejected the partition plan. Furthermore, in 1994, during the Jordan-Israel Peace Treaty, the Jordan River became the legal border between the 2 countries, placing Judea and Samaria inside Israel, which means that here too the cry of Israeli occupation has no legal basis. On occasion, I hear people justify the Israeli occupation lie by the claim that Britain, which occupied Israel until 1948, didn't have the right to give Israel to the Jews because it wasn't theirs to give. What the anti-Semitic machine doesn't want you to know is that on the same token, Britain was said to give the other side of the Jordan River to the Saudi Arabian family that became the royal family of what became Jordan. If one is wrong, then the other one, like it, must be wrong too, but not in the one-sided anti-Semitic mindset. Furthermore, Israel became an independent state by the UN majority vote, not by a decision made by Britain, which means that no matter how you slice and dice the cry of occupation, From a legal position, it is nothing but an empty sack that is standing upright. In 1993, in the first Oslo peace meeting between Israel and the terrorist group Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, it was agreed that Israel would let the Muslim population in Judea and Samaria self-govern in exchange for ceasing terrorism against Israeli citizens. But the day after the meeting, the PLO leader, a Palestinian wannabe Egyptian, announced that his agreement to cease terrorism was made in bad faith, as required by the jihadi requirement to suspend moral judgment called taqiyya when lying to an enemy. Not only terrorism against Israeli citizens didn't cease, but increased. Israel, on the other hand, honored its agreement of Muslim self-governing in good faith, although it became necessary for Israel to have security presence in Muslim areas in order to combat the increase in terrorism. The Muslim anti-Semitic machine, counting on Western ignorance, subverted the Israeli security presence in Judea and Samaria into breaking the Oslo peace agreement in order to justify the big lie of Israeli occupation. In 1995, the Oslo peace meeting convened again, now with the PLO terrorist organization renamed the Palestinian Authority, and with the same choreography due to adherence to Taqiyya. Once again, terrorism didn't cease, but increased, and the Muslim anti-Semitic megaphone once again lied to the world that Israel broke the Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement due to the Israeli security presence in Judea and Samaria. What I became aware of is that no matter how people explain the cry of Israeli occupation, the dots don't connect. The truth is that 1. The border between Jordan and Israel since 1994 is the Jordan River, which places Judea and Samaria legally inside Israel. 2. The Muslim population in Judea and Samaria has no justification for the claim for nationhood that would place them under the fake Israeli occupation. And 3. The Muslim population in Judea and Samaria is self-governed, courtesy of Israel, but the presence of Israeli security remains a necessity due to the immense terrorism attacks on Israeli citizens, to include kidnapping and killing Israeli children, on which the global media is silent. Since 1967, when Jordan lost Judea and Samaria to Israel, the living conditions of the Muslim population improved extensively. They now have not only electricity and running water, but also paved roads, cars, schools, universities, hospitals, internet, job opportunities, malls, health insurance, villas, and palaces, which most likely they wouldn't have been the case if it stayed under Jordanian occupation. What became clear to me was that while Jordan was the host from hell, torturing and killing people who dared to speak up, Israel has been the host from heaven. Today, the anti-Semitic machine of Judea and Samaria abuses the Israeli privilege of free speech against Israel. If you didn't know, now you know. Bye.